The contents of this interview, or from Awake and Empowered Expo LLC from Ethann Fox and Flower of Life Center for Human Evolution, is for informational purposes only and does not necessarily reflect the viewpoints held by these organizations or individuals. Always consult with your doctor or health professional before making any changes to your diet, lifestyle, or prescription drug use. Please understand that you assume all responsibility and risk for the use or misuse of this information.
Thank you for joining me for another Awake and Empowered radio show. Today I have with me the world-renowned health expert and supplement scientist, Dr. Edward Group. Dr. Group is a regular guest on popular alternative media shows such as InfoWars with Alex Jones and the Natural News Network with Mike Adams. In this interview, we not only speak about interesting health topics such as hormonal and intestinal health, but also about crystal and indigo children and how to take care of their physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being. Dr. Group will be a keynote presenter at our upcoming April 2015 Awake and Empowered Expo.
Good morning.
Good morning, Dr. Group. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Doing great. Thank you for getting on the call with me today. I know you're a busy guy, so I appreciate the time you're spending with me. What I'd like to really start out with is to hear a little about your life history for those of our audience who aren't that familiar with you and your background, education experience, and basically anything that led you down the journey to becoming a pioneer in this field, and if you want to wrap that up with how you got hooked up with Alex Jones at this point as well.
Well, my life was really interesting from birth, I guess. I never really fit in, I guess, would be. It's the same thing that's happening these days with the children. I had a great family. My mom was from Wisconsin. My dad was from New York. I was raised on meat and, all of the standard American diet things. Although I was labeled, I guess, as hyperactive, not really attentive that much. And even when I was a small boy, I can remember just almost feeling like I had a higher energy and had problems sleeping. I would have visions at night, and actually didn't start writing them down until later on in my life. But really, I felt kind of alone because I didn't know where to go. I would talk to my mom about it. I would talk to my dad about it, but my dad was busy with work a lot of times. My family, the history of my family dates back to Pelatiah Webster, which is the original writer of the U.S. Constitution. So part of the one side of my family, my dad's side of my family, my great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather was the one that wrote the Constitution of the United States. So, and then Noah Webster was my grandfather too, which wrote the Webster's Dictionary. And that the reason I'm saying that is because it helped me understand the purpose of why I'm here today, because my dad was a chemist for Exxon. He was a co-developer of PVC plastic. He also was a co-developer of saran wrap, and he died of throat cancer, which I think had something to do with a top secret project he was working on that certain individuals didn't want to get out, because he was dead within 2 weeks, and that was when I was in my 20s. But going back, I always knew that I wanted to help the planet. I was very close to the planet, very close to animals. I could almost communicate with animals, even sometimes when I was put in a situation where someone said, oh, that no one's ever been able to come near that dog before. It's a dangerous dog. It'll bite you. It'll attack you. It'll kill you. And I could just walk right in, and the dog would be, come and sit down or lay down at my feet. I didn't understand. I was raised in Christian churches, and I really didn't even get answers in church. I would try to talk to the preacher about some of the things that I was experiencing, and they didn't even have answers for me. So I was kind of left to doing my own research and trying to figure out how to fit in and how to utilize, or what was happening to me. My parents took me to psychiatrists. We were in counseling for years and years and years, and I still have the reports, and the reports say that I would never amount to anything, but And they would tell me this. I would never amount to anything. I would never be a leader. I would never be fit into society. I would most likely, the best job for me would be a policeman or a fireman, and some sort of city employee. That was what their diagnosis was of me. Also, I really wasn't, a straight A student either. I was just a fairly, C and D type student, because I really didn't conform to the whole schooling thing that well either, which is the same situation a lot of children are going through today. But how I kind of got into this is I decided I wanted to go into the military when I graduated high school. I just felt the need that I wanted to go in, and I wanted to see if that was anything for me. So I was in the military for 3 years active, and then 4 years, and then came back and started college in Louisiana. And then I knew that I wanted to be something in the health field. So really, I wanted to be a heart surgeon. That was what my dream was at that time. So I was in school doing all the prerequisite stuff, trying to prepare myself for medical school. And then right before I was going to go into medical school, I met a guy who was treating cancer naturally. And I was brainwashed thinking that pharmaceuticals were the only way to go. Even though I did have a earthly connection and everything, I just conformed there for a while. Now looking back on it, and because when I met this guy, talking to other doctors, that's what the whole system is designed to do. I mean, it's designed to really take you away from nature, take you away from learning the true methodology of how the body works and the proper way to heal the body. And it takes you in a whole nother direction on, medical diagnosis, medical treatment, pharmaceuticals. And I could really see that happening, because when this guy was talking to me saying, well, why are you going into that field? Now I know everything happens for a reason, and he was sent to have that conversation with me. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Well, I really want to help people. I really want to be a heart surgeon. And he's like, well, what you need to do is address the root cause of the problem of why people are even getting heart disease, and address the root cause of why all these people are coming down with these diseases, and not address the symptoms. What good is it going to do if you're a heart surgeon and you fix somebody's heart and then they go right back to eating a bunch of fatty foods, and they don't change their lifestyle and they don't change their diet and everything else? I said, well, that's what we have prescription medications for. We can regulate their blood pressure with medications, and we can do that. He said, there is no such thing as a good pharmaceutical out there. Maybe you might need to take them for short term, and we have the best emergency care hospitals in the world. If you break your leg, we can save your life, but all these things that you're talking about are, you're approaching it in the wrong direction. So we kind of got in a little argument. He said, pick any pharmaceutical and tell me how it's going to do any good on the body. So I said, okay. Went to the library. I already had a pretty good background in biochemistry and chemistry at that point, and I just, looked at the chemical structure of a couple different pharmaceutical medications. And I was only in the library for maybe 2 or 3 hours, because anybody can do the same thing that I did and realize real fast what happens with medications in the body. And at that point, I can remember leaving the library and tears were coming down my face. And I just saw this white light, and I was driving. I don't even know what happened for about 5 minutes in my vehicle. All I know is that had this vision of a complete different change and vision of healing the body and teaching people how to heal themselves, really, and doing it the natural way. And then all of a sudden, I just woke up and my hands were on the were still on the wheel of the car, and I was probably about 20 miles down the road. So for that period of time, God, the higher being, was driving my car. And at that point, I was just like, this is it. I just had chills all over my body. So I went and talked to this guy. I said, teach me everything you know. And I just devoted practically every minute of my time to learning, studying all different types of spirituality, started studying the emotions, everything I could find about natural healing, all the herbs. Really wanted to focus on cancer because that was his specialty too, and started learning from him. Went down to Mexico, learned from the cancer doctors down there. And that's how I got involved with learning about not only focusing on how to teach people how to heal themselves based on reactivating their own self-healing mechanism, because even in the natural field, well, eventually that led me into chiropractic school and, herbology school and everything else, so I could have some sort of degree behind my name, although those schools still taught how to treat the symptoms and not the root cause, except for chiropractic, which I'm a firm believer in, which opens up all the neurological pathways that you need for healing. But in the naturopathic colleges and stuff like that, they're still teaching to prescribe a herb for a condition instead of addressing the root cause. And a lot of the information that I learned was from other teachers, from other healers, and some of them didn't even have a college degree. Some of the best and most effective things that I've learned did not come from any of those teaching organizations. They just came from individuals. And a lot of the books also that were burned from the late 1800s all the way up through the 1960s on cleansing the body, how to reactivate the self-healing mechanism, etc. So then we opened up our first degenerative disease clinic and natural cancer clinic in 1998 here in Houston. And we had, in a very short period of time, we were very popular because what we were using, the techniques we were using, the cleansing, the counseling we were using with patients, they were getting better. At the time, MD Anderson, the world's leading cancer hospital, only had a 4% success rate. Within a year, we were seeing anywhere from a 40% to a 70% success rate. That's tremendous considering the amount of money that goes into all of the cancer American Cancer Society, the breast cancer cause, all of these organizations and all the money that's spent on cancer research to find a cure. And we were able to do it here as a chiropractor in his 20s and a couple other guys that are having better success rates than MD Anderson and using natural methods. That didn't last too long. Once the word got out, our office got raided. We were being followed in black cars. My phones were tapped. All kinds of weird stuff started happening. We were basically threatened, saying, if you continue with this, you're not going to be around too long. So at that time, we were pretty much forced to shut down. Although, funny thing about it is, some of the people that were trying to shut us down were the ones that were actually getting treated. I mean, we had the royal family that was flying in on secret jets to come to our clinic from London that, they didn't want anybody knowing about what was going on with them. And some of the higher level government officials that were coming to us instead of coming to the mainstream doctors. So then we were basically back to square one. What do we do from here? So that's when I started looking at all the supplements that were out on the market, and really, even when we were treating Well, I don't like to say treating, because really our main mission was to educate the individual person on how they can heal themselves. Because if they would come to us, and you can it's an educational process. You have to teach somebody how to heal themselves and what to look for. And so that's what our main mission was. Yes, we would do all the cleansing, we would do a lot of the treatments, but what the main focus was teaching those individuals why they have the condition that they had in the first place, and then educating them on how to prevent that, or to clean their body, or to keep their bodies clean and keep their self-healing mechanism active. Because what we would do is explain to them, everybody has a self-healing mechanism. It's something that God has given you, and what happens is your self-healing mechanism becomes suppressed with the toxins in the food and the water and the beverages and everything else. And people are not being educated enough as to what to look for. So we would educate them on how to identify those things that would reduce their own body's self-healing mechanism, and how to keep their self-healing mechanism strong, and how to resist and prevent disease. When we got shut down, we figured, hey, we can still do this. We can still teach people how to do this, even though we're not allowed to see patients. We can get the word out online. And that was right around when the internet was becoming popular. And at that point, I had my second vision. Well, I had lots of visions, but this was more or less focused on this, was I could see the reach of people that we could get to. And this was still back in 1999, because we only really had our clinic open for maybe a year and a half before it got shut down. I could see the big picture. And by the way, I knew nothing about the internet at that time. I was one of those anti-internet guys, anti-technical guys. I mean, you show me a computer and I was like, do not even bring that around me. But the vision I had was, we could bring this to the world. We could bring this information to the world. And so I immediately started the next day saying, guys, let's pull together. Let's find somebody that knows about computers that could train us on this, that can start putting together a website, and we can start sharing all this information about how to reactivate your self-healing mechanism, all this information about cancer, why it's, the technology is being suppressed, why it's not being allowed in this country, what people can do, how stress, how negative thinking affects their body, how positive thinking can prepare their body. All the things that people really need to understand and educate themselves on to produce a positive mind, a positive body, and, work with themselves positively, spiritually. So that's when we started developing products and started getting our information out to the masses. And I can remember back then, it was, everybody really had, a lot of people didn't even have computers. I think when we first started, only 6% of the world's population had computer access. And now look where it's grown. And we still, I think last time I checked, right now, only 28% of the world's population has computer access and internet access. So we still have close to 75% of the people out there that we can reach. And it's just gone crazy since then. And another big factor of what we've done is produce products that are GMO free, that are vegan, that are clean. We kind of reinvented the wheel when it came to producing dietary supplements, because no one out there, it was so hard for me to find something to recommend to individuals that was clean. Most of the stuff was contaminated with heavy metals we were testing. It was coming from China. All the supplements practically were using maltodextrin. They were using magnesium stearate. Even though in synthetic, they were using synthetic B vitamins, other synthetic vitamins. So what I wanted to do was actually create a supplement line and cleansing the body, let people know how effective cleansing is, that people could take over and be responsible for their own health. And one of the biggest breakthroughs I think that I had during this period of time, where we used to have 265 different supplements from different companies from all over the world, was a learning experience. Once we started working with people on cleansing, we noticed that in our cancer facility, we were getting better results than even the cancer facilities down in Mexico. And the one thing we were doing different than every other natural facility that was treating any disease, cancer, whatever, was the fact that we would start cleansing their body. And we would utilize a little bit of fasting. We would utilize oxygen intestinal cleansing. We would have them do multiple liver and gallbladder cleansings, which we found out clinically that one liver and gallbladder cleanse was not enough, that we had to do either 3, 6, or 9 in multiples of 3, which later on we realized the numerical significance of that. And we would start everybody off with intestinal cleansing, 3 liver and gallbladder cleanses. Then we would move on to parasite cleansing, get all the parasites out of the body. We would move on to chemical and heavy metal cleansing. And then if we needed to, we would move on to kidney cleansing or whatever we needed to cleanse. And that was based kind of on a part of what Hulda Clark was doing. If anyone is familiar with Hulda Clark, she was also big into liver cleansing. And so we would really start cleansing and cleansing and cleansing and cleansing the body. Well, what we realized over time was that we had people that's all they did was start cleansing their body, and all their diseases would go away, or their cancer would go away, or whatever. So we realized there's really one system that works on everything, and that is, if your body is clean and you continually clean your body to the point where that also means you're not putting a bunch of chemicals and toxins into your body, and you're also breathing clean air and drinking clean water and taking care of the outside of your body, and you're cleaning the inside of your body, that there's really one thing that works on every single health condition in the world and never fails, and that's your body's own self-healing mechanism. And how you can activate your body's own self-healing mechanism is just by cleansing the body until it's clean enough to reactivate it to a point where it can take over. And that pretty much sums up everything up to this point. And now the mission is just education. It's just educating people to learn about what are some of the negative things out there that are affecting them, and then how to positively adjust your lifestyle to those things and eliminate those things, so you can prevent disease, and you as a person or your family or anybody you're helping can continue to live healthy. And health really is what creates self-confidence. I mean, we have a lack of self-confidence in society. People are not looking in the mirror and saying, wow, I'm self-confident. And self-confidence equals success. So the main mission that we have out there, and of course the main mission that you guys have out there and many other people have out there, is to help people take responsibility for their own life and make positive changes in their life on a daily basis.
So how did you end up on the Alex Jones Show?
Well, how I ended up on the Alex Jones Show was through a referral of Anthony Gucciardi. Anthony Gucciardi was running the Natural Society, and also Mike Adams. Mike Adams was hosting the Alex Jones Show a few times, and Alex had been on a search for different products that he could introduce to his listeners, because he just started getting more into the health side and realized that, he does talk a lot about the negative things that are going on in the environment. And he actually said that he kind of had a waking up one day, I guess, and he wanted to start looking at more and giving his listeners more of solutions, how they can protect themselves against fluoride, how they can keep themselves clean, because he realized that health is you can, if you give one side of the, if you say that this is the problem, then you should also give everybody a solution. Personally, I never say that there's a problem. I always say there's a situation and there's always a solution for every situation. So he wanted to, he started looking all around and looking at what doctors were actually, giving people positive solutions, and talking about some of the things that he was talking about. And that's how we originally got on the show. I originally got on the show. And so now what I try to bring to the listeners, and what he's actually been doing too, he asked me if I would allow him to license and sell some of the products that we have and come on and talk about how they could help the listeners grow and wake up and protect themselves and educate themselves on different types of health issues. So now he's had me on multiple times, and we've been able to kind of bring in that positive side of the show, where we're not just talking about, yes, this is all the bad stuff, this is all the negative stuff that's happening, but this is, you really have to understand a lot of the negative in order to come back on the positive too. There's a perfect balance. There's always going to be the yin and the yang. There's going to be the negative and the positive. And so I feel that my mission over there is to start bringing in the positive side of things and start telling people, yeah, you might have fluoride in your water. Yes, you can trace that back to Nazi Germany. You can trace that back to the calcification of the pineal gland. But if you understand that, what you should be focusing on is, you shouldn't be focusing on the negative. You should be focusing on the positive, and you should be saying, okay, great, I know that now. Now, how can I help my family, and how can I share the positive things of cleaning up fluoride? I'll get a water purification for my home. I'll get a, under sink unit. My family won't drink fluoridated water. I won't go, I'll start drinking more pure water. So what I'm trying to do over there is to try to bring in the solutions to the problems and how people can change their lifestyle. And it's all of the things that we usually talk about are things that are specifically designed to reduce or suppress your body's own self-healing mechanism. So I'm trying to educate people on how they can avoid, and the positive things on how they can increase their self-healing mechanism and how they can avoid all those things.
So of all the things you've mentioned a few things here, what do you think is the biggest contributor to poor health in America, or even the world today? Is it environmental, such as chemtrails, or poor air quality, or fluoridation, or is it primarily diet, or do you think it's lack of exercise, or just a combination of all the above?
It's a combination of thousands upon thousands of things hitting the body all at once. You have the air. First of all, our air quality is gone. Our oxygen content in the air has gone from 30% oxygen in the air just 100 years ago down to some places 6-9%. So you've taken the oxygen away from the number one element that we need. Millions upon millions upon millions of acres of trees have been cut down all over the earth, which provide us oxygen. There's a system at play by different individuals to try to reduce the population of the planet, and then also to create a sick population. And it's a combination, like you said, of multifaceted. Now you have chemtrails in the air. So the air has become, instead of a healthy, living, breathing air, which we take 30,000 breaths every single day, that revives us, that the pollen in the air, in a perfectly clean, oxygen-rich air, we're going to breathe water into our bodies through the air. We're going to breathe pollen and nutrients and energy through the air, water droplets that are full of light and sound, and create ultimate spiritual experiences in us. What we've gone from that perfect crystalline pure water in the air that we should be breathing, to chemicals in the air, toxins in the air, fossil fuels in the air, oxygen content down, with the chemtrails that are being sprayed all over the planet as well. So then you look at air, then you look at the water on the planet, whether, when you look at the body itself, the body is made, every single living substance is composed of at least 80, usually closer to 90% water. Our bodies are just like the earth, okay? We have living, breathing substances, minerals, just like the soil of the earth. We have, the skin of the body, which is which should be equivalent to the soil or the layer of the earth. We have water inside of our bodies, 90%. The earth itself is composed of 90% water. And you look at all the problems that we're facing in the human, and the animals are facing, all the sickness, and the earth is facing the same thing. The water in all of the oceans is poisoned, whether it's from Fukushima, you have radiation in the water, then you have all the plastics in the water, you have all the chemicals that are being dumped in the waters, that are affecting the fish, the reproductive cycles, and then, so that's air and water. I mean, we could talk for hours just on those two things alone. And then you have the food supply that's being affected. Well, if you water the food with poisoned water, and then you have the air also that's coming down on the food supply, and then you have all the preservatives in the food, the microwaved foods that people eat, the processed foods that are made with white flour, the gluten, which is a toxin. You have the genetically modified foods. There's so many different chemicals and toxins in the foods that are mass produced that are affecting us all and affecting all the cells in our body. Then you have all the beverages, you have all the addictions to Diet Coke, to desserts, to artificial sweeteners, MSG, carbonated beverages, alcohol, which in itself is an endocrine disrupting chemical. You have coffee, and there's, in a certain degree, coffee is not going to be super bad for you if it's organic and it's limited, but you still have the pesticide residue in coffee. You have all of the things that out there that are being abused on a regular basis and people are drinking too much of. And that's just the beverages, the energy drinks that are affecting all of our kids right now, which are loaded with synthetic chemicals and artificial colors and things to that nature. So then you have parasites. You have food, beverages, air, water, parasites that are, people with overgrowth of candida, lack of good probiotics in their systems because the alcohol and the acidic foods and the meat and everything like that people are eating, causing bowel disorders. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on and on and on. And those are all of the things that are, and then heavy metals and chemical exposure that are out there. I mean, how many people spray their yard with Roundup and glyphosate on a daily or on a weekly basis? All that's leaking back into the water supply and it's getting recirculated. Then you have pharmaceutical medications that are people are on and children are on right now at an early age. The whole diagnostic and statistical manual, which was created just to produce and prescribe more chemicals into people's bodies to reduce their consciousness, to reduce their ability. In order for people to be controlled, you have to reduce their health. And all of these things are done by design to reduce your health, to make you feel sick, to make your brain not function at 100%, to make your consciousness not function at 100%, to make you feel pains, to make you feel depressed, anxious, anxiety. And it's actually being done at an early age right now, which is really a sad situation, because you're having a lot of children that are highly conscious that are being born into society right now, which are being born to help bring and raise the consciousness of the planet. And unfortunately, they're being misdiagnosed, because these children will have the same exact signs and symptoms of autism and ADD and ADHD until they're about 12, until they wake up, until their body can merge into this energy field. And then all those symptoms usually go away. But they're being misdiagnosed, and they're being prescribed Adderall and Ritalin, and they're being given fluoridated water, which is calcifying their pineal gland and cutting off all their conscious connection to the upper worlds or the upper consciousness. And they're becoming toxic, and then they're being misdiagnosed. So you're right. It is a combination of thousands upon thousands of chemicals and toxins and poisons that are affecting us. But there's simple solutions to that. I mean, yes, there is, and you can spend days and months and months and months looking at all these things and learning about them, which is not a bad thing, because we used to ask cancer patients and degenerative disease patients all the time when they came in, do you understand what caused your condition you're dealing with right now? And they would say no. And we would say, well, hasn't any of the doctors that you've seen, because every patient that came to us had been suffering and seen multiple doctors upon multiple doctors. As a matter of fact, when they came to us, they would always ask us, they were always down and depressed, and they would say, yeah, what are you going to do for us that any of the other doctors didn't do? You're our last, we've already been to the top experts in the world. They couldn't do anything for us. What are you going to do for us? They already had that kind of attitude. And our first question was, well, what did do you understand why? Tell me what the other doctors told you. Why do you have your cancer? Why do you have your diabetes? Why do you have your obesity? Why do you have whatever you're dealing with? Tell me. And they would say, well, we don't know. They never told us why we have it. They just, wanted to treat us. And I said, well, don't you think that you need to understand why you have the condition you're dealing with first, before you understand how to eliminate it? I'm not going to get rid of your disease. You're going to get rid of your disease. My job is to teach you how to get rid of your condition, because the true definition of a doctor is not a prescriber. The true definition of a doctor is a teacher. And so none of them could answer that question. And they would always say, no, we don't know. So our philosophy was, before we even started working with someone, was to educate them on why they had the condition they had. And we would spend 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours sometimes going over and taking a huge history of that person's life and saying, these are the reasons why. These are the decisions that you made. These are the environments that you put yourself in. These are the things that suppressed your body's self-healing mechanism. And and then I would say, look, it took you 40 years to get this disease. You're in here after 40 years of abuse. How would it make you feel if I told you we could reverse that in 90 days? Well, first I would say, how would it make you feel if I was to say that it would take another 40 years to get this condition reversed? And they would say, oh my gosh, I just can't believe, no, there's just no way I could take another 40 years. I said, well, it took you 40 years to get the condition. Why wouldn't it take you 40 years to fix the condition? I would say the good news is, in less than, usually around 90 days, if you clean your body up and you make some changes, your body will start to show signs of repair within 90 days. It takes 90 days to regenerate your liver. So there's always a good side to everything, because that's how amazing the body is. That's how amazing the body wants to be better. The body wants you to recognize the symptoms. When you have a headache, your body is calling and screaming out to you saying, I have a headache. I'm talking to you. I want you to listen to me. What did you eat over the last 10 hours, 24 hours? What did you do? Where did you go? Did you use some chemical cleaning product in your house? Your body wants you to pay attention to it. It's just that we are conditioned from birth and never taught how to pay attention to our bodies, how to listen to our bodies, how to react to our bodies. You're not taught that, to pay attention to what happens to your body every time you eat a certain type of meal. Did you have a bowel movement in within 24 hours? How many bowel movements a day are you having? How much sleep are you getting? Are you having any disturbances in your sleep patterns? How do you feel during the day? Do you feel anxious or stressed at different times of the day? How are your emotional patterns? Do you feel angry? The days that you do feel good, the days that you do feel positive, the days that you feel on top of the world, what did you do the day before? What did you do for the last 12 hours? Because if I want to feel this good, I want to know exactly what I did over the last 12 hours to make me feel this good. How much water did you drink? A lot of these problems that people are suffering from are just dehydration. If people just drank half their body weight in ounces in water every single day, they would be feeling incredibly better. Water is one of the best things to detoxify and clean chemicals out of your system and help repair. You would think that since we're 90% water, that water would be the number one thing that we would be, clean water should be the number one thing that we should be putting in our system. That's what we did. The first thing we did with patients was say, look, I'm sorry, but if you want to get better, you're going to have to eliminate every single liquid in your diet from now on, except for water and organic apple cider vinegar. The only thing that the human body needs and wants after breastfeeding is water. And that's the same thing with animals and everything else. So when you take them off all of the other liquid beverages and put them strictly on water, and we use distilled water only because it's the cleanest source of water, and then to put the minerals and the life and the activity back into that distilled water, we have them put a capful or a teaspoon or even working up to a couple tablespoons, in their water. Organic apple cider vinegar is one of the cheapest and most effective ways to get life back into water and back into your body. I mean, there's been thousands of documented cases with organic apple cider vinegar. It's one of the things that I really love to work with. So it's not super hard to listen to your body and to reactivate your body's own self-healing mechanism. It's just all comes down to one thing: cleansing the body. Cleansing the body, cleansing the body, cleansing the mind, cleansing the body, cleansing the soul. But the thing is, when the body becomes clean, so does the mind, and so does the soul. So that's, I know we went off on a lot of different topics there, but then we can talk about a lot of different topics. But yes, really the thing is, it's a combination of multitude of things that you're exposed to on a daily basis. And everybody's exposed to different things on a daily basis depending on where they live in the world.
Now, you mentioned apple cider vinegar. Is it necessary to put it in water, or can you put it in anything as long as you're consuming a certain amount of it every day?
Well, I say water, but, only water. But, of course, I was leaving out fresh vegetable juices and fresh, any type of fresh juice, which, of course, is 90% water anyway. So you can put it in fresh. If you're going to be juicing, you could put it in vegetable juices, or you could put it in fruit juices, or if you wanted to put it in a fresh herbal tea, let's say, you could put it in that as well, just as long as the heat is not above 105 degrees, because you wouldn't want to kill off any of the enzymes or the probiotics that are going to be in the organic apple cider vinegar.
Now, we talked about all the different issues that are affecting our health. And you mentioned a few things like apple cider vinegar, but it can sound kind of overwhelming to somebody who may not even have started on that journey and may still be eating hamburgers and fries. So where does someone start in terms of improving their health? Do they start on the level of diet, or do they really have to tackle everything all at once?
The way that I explain it to people is picture a ladder going all the way up into the clouds. And at the top of the ladder is perfect. You're in perfect health, spiritually, mentally, and physically. At the bottom of the ladder, you're pretty much on your way out, and you have days to live. Every single day, if you take one step on that ladder up, you're doing a good job. So let's say that one day you're going to, or even if you take a step up every week, I mean, it's baby steps. It's something that you need to be doing and looking at over a longer period of time. Let's say you make a decision this week that you're going to replace your table salt with Himalayan crystal salts instead. Yes, it's a tiny bit more expensive, but you're damaging you and your family's body by utilizing standard table salts. You're going to get 84 plus healthy minerals and nutrients by using Himalayan crystal salt, for example. So this week you decide, I'm going to make a change for the rest of my life, and I'm not going to buy table salt anymore. I'm going to Himalayan crystal salt. That's a big change. You just took 2 steps up on that ladder to health for you and your family. The next week, you say, I'm not going to drink any more energy drinks or whatever. Really, it's about slowly eliminating the things that are causing your self-healing mechanism to be suppressed on a day. Some people might want to do it on a daily basis. Some people might want to do it on a weekly basis. Some people might want to do it on a monthly basis. Doesn't really matter. As long as you're going up those stairs to health, you're doing yourself a lot of good. It can be overwhelming. It can be extremely overwhelming. You say, yeah, I want to, from this week, I'm not going to eat meat anymore that comes from any fast food joint, anything like that. From now on, we're going to get range-fed beef or buffalo or emu or something like that, or venison from a clean source, a grass-fed source. Yeah, I'm going to make that decision. Yes, it might be a little bit more expensive, but I'm not going to get the hormones. I'm not going to get the toxins that are going to be in the meat. I'm going to get a cleaner type of a meat. And I'm going to reduce my meat intake from, let's say, every single day to 3 times a week. It's baby steps. It's slowly eliminating the things that are harming you. And that's exactly why I wrote the book, The Green Body Cleanse. I wrote a book explaining exactly how to change your life and clean up the environment in your home, doing baby steps to where you can choose one thing and slowly start progressing through changing your life on a daily basis. One of the biggest things that people really have a hard time with is the diet sodas. And that is one of the most damaging things that you can ever put in your body. Aspartame, that's the only FDA-approved substance that's had thousands or 72 or more documented side effects. The FDA gets the most calls from side effects on aspartame than anything else. It's been proven to cause brain cancer. It's been proven to cause a host of all kinds of neurological disorders, everything else. So it's really about learning. And in the book, you can identify thousands upon thousands of chemicals and list on where those chemicals are and why to avoid them. But in my book, I just list maybe the top 20 things that you can do that you can eliminate in your life that will reactivate your self-healing mechanism to a point where, as long as you continue to clean your body, maybe once a year, once every 6 months, do cleansing, that you should be in a scenario where your body is clean enough to prevent that you'll be solidly healthy on a physical, spiritual, and mental standpoint. The one thing though that is debilitating and that can neutralize a lot of these things is stress. Unfortunately, stress and fear and the negative emotions automatically reduce your immune system by 50%. So stress is something that I highly recommend. Even, if you're in a state of stress and you're in a sympathetic state, there's a parasympathetic and a sympathetic nervous system, it can neutralize the positive effects of even supplements. And how we did prove that was years ago when we had our cancer clinic. We evaluated, because we had the question all the time, well, how come there's a guy I know that eats donuts for breakfast, drinks 2 liters of diet drinks a day, drinks a fifth of alcohol, worst diet in the world, chemical ridden, not even spiritual. He's 80 years old. He does that every single day, and he doesn't have cancer and he doesn't have any disease. And why are people coming down with diseases that, like Lance Armstrong, he rides, he exercises every single day, eat healthy. Why are these people, the healthy people, coming down with diseases? Well, that was a very interesting scenario for us to research, because we found that was, we're trying to say, look, all these chemicals and all this stuff are the main cause of the breakdown in the body, and these are the main cause of disease. One of the things that we were thinking this, that was before we started focusing on the emotional component and spiritual component. And that's kind of really what led us into that, the importance of how that connects to not only all these man-made things that people are putting in, but there's a whole nother side to it. Granted, a lot of these chemicals cause depression and cause fear with the media, and a lot of the fear-based systems that are out there have negative connotations, and a lot of these chemicals and all that actually we found contribute to that. But with that being said, when we analyzed a lot of these individuals, we found that there was only one thing. There was only one thing that would separate somebody who was eating and doing all these bad things, and smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day and everything, that didn't have disease, as to somebody who was. And those people, most of the time, were not that stressed out, believe it or not, because they were using things to combat their stresses. The only thing that we could find was that they weren't really stressed out. They were fairly happy people. They were laughing all the time. They were emotionally different, I guess. The people that had the diseases and all that, yes, there might have been, a lot of them were much more highly spiritually evolved than the other ones. They had a lot cleaner of a diet, but they were highly stressed. They were highly under a lot of pressure. They were emotionally unstable. They didn't deal with their emotions effectively. They had problems in relationships. They had a lot of jealousy, fear. Just, every person has to be evaluated independently, which was another thing we found out. You can't have just one diet for all of the same people. Every single person has their own situation that they're living in, their own environment that they're living in, their own exposures to different types of mental toxins, spiritual toxins, emotional toxins, and environmental toxins is what it really comes down to. And each individual person had to be evaluated for those. It wasn't like one individual thing across the board was going to cause those health problems in all individuals. Because if that one person that had emotional issues or fear, anxiety, or stress, or all that stuff that was healthy, that was the cause of their problems. And we know for a fact, there's documented evidence. PubMed has it, the National Institute of Health, Harvard, Tufts University. You can look up all day long about negative effects of aspartame on dopamine, serotonin, neurotransmitters, negative effect of MSG on dopamine, serotonin, neurotransmitters in the brain. These are all the feel-good chemicals. So if you alter those, xenoestrogens, BPA, negative, all of these things that can affect you mentally, that are mental, even though they're chemical compounds, they have a direct relationship on your neurological system, which means that stress, anxiety, depression, all of these emotional toxins can be directly linked to chemical toxins. They don't have to be, but they can be. So there's a bigger picture involved with how everything works together. Look, everything is in synergy, or it's in dyssynergy. So, and that's the way the earth operates too.
Now, you mentioned quite a few things there, and I want to come back to some of those if we have time. So there are so many different aspects to maintaining optimal health. Is there any one direction that you think is the most important, or one supplement or regimen that a person should undergo, that if they could only do one thing, is there a one thing that they should start with?
That is a great question. There is one thing. When we were doing all the research on the cause of disease and trying to pinpoint how all this is getting in the body and how all this is happening, it all led us back to the intestines. If you look at 96 to 98% of all these chemicals and all these toxins, they have to get inside the body to cause harm. They all get in the body through the intestinal tract. And if you start really doing research on the intestines, you'll see that the appendix is actually the microcomputer of the body. It's not the brain. 70% of the immune system is in the gut. Every single thing functions from the gut. The bacteria in your gut produce vitamins, nutrients, minerals, activate the immune system. The appendix, which is at the juncture of the small and the large intestine, is the only computer relay system in the body. It's really the brain of your whole system. It regulates, it tells the neurological, the endocrine, all the systems of the body what's going on and what's coming in. And if you think about it, why wouldn't the intestines be the number one, brain and relay center and everything, control every single thing in your body? That's where everything comes in. So if there's one thing and that's what led us to developing a product, an oxygen intestinal cleanser that could keep the intestines clean and functioning and neutralize a lot of the chemicals and toxins that are in there on a regular basis. Because my biggest thing that I've found is that people are not having as many bowel movements as they need to have. Look at the animals out there that live on a healthy grass or seed or nut diet. They go to the bathroom 2 or 3 times a day. Look at a cow, a horse, anybody who eats grasses, any animal. What we have is a processed, cooked food diet which destroys the intestines and causes us to become constipated. Bowel disease is rampant. Every single person out there has some alteration in their bowel, whether it's constipation, gas, bloating, diarrhea, heartburn, stomach problems, hemorrhoids. The list just goes on and on and on and on. Colon cancer, now they're saying 1 out of 2 people are going to have colon cancer. So to answer your question, if there's one thing that someone can do 2 to 3 times a week, and I'm not saying that to promote my product at all, there's plenty of them out there, find one that works best. It's just what I'm saying is you cannot take laxatives, those harm your body. And plus they do not neutralize. You have to have a negative oxygen is the only way to do it, because even the herbal-based colon cleansers out there, the Cascara Sagrada, the psyllium, the fiber, the bulking agents, will cause permanent damage to your bowel, and that's proven in clinical trials. Long-term use of laxatives and herbal cleansers can create permanent damage to the intestinal walls. There's only one thing they will not, and that's monatomic oxygen. And Eugene Bloss and Nikolai Tesla are the ones that came up with the technology in 1898 in a hotel room. I didn't invent it. That was invented by them. We are the ones that came up with the formula, and we're the only ones that have the original formula of how to produce it. Actually, I take that back. Homozone is another product that has the original formula too. So we were using that formula with all of our patients and saw great success with it. So if there's one thing I would recommend every single person be on, it would be an oxygen intestinal cleanser to clean their intestines, to keep their intestines clean. And then, of course, good probiotics. And I use Lateroflora. There's a good one from Garden of Life, which is the Primal Defense Ultra. I've been working on a real high-end blend of probiotics for 8 years now. And we're putting stuff in there that's never been done before. And it's going to be as close to nature as possible. Something that you would have gotten naturally if you were living off the land in a pristine, environmentally clean environment 100 years ago. And that is getting closer and closer to development and should be out in the next 6 months, just because we've evaluated all the different probiotic formulas out there, and we really haven't been able to find one that's a unique formula that utilizes the probiotics, the best ones, in a higher concentrated form. So that also doesn't, you have to understand that 99.9% of all the probiotic formulas out there, they utilize maltodextrin, and it's genetically modified, and nobody knows that. But if you start, digging your nose around in it, you'll quickly realize that all the probiotics out there, because you can fit 1 billion probiotics on the tip of a pencil. So what they have to do is they have to use these filler compounds in there, and they use maltodextrin, they use silicon dioxide, they use all these toxic fillers. And there's only about 4 big producers of strains of probiotics. And only one of them was willing to start the R&D process with me, because they pretty much have to do everything. We had to start from scratch and use and create different types of filler compounds that were certified organic, that the probiotics wouldn't die in, or they wouldn't gum up, or they wouldn't, take in a lot of moisture. So we've actually spent 8 years working on this technology to produce the first probiotic formula in the world that contains only certified organic filler ingredients, and that should be out fairly soon. But so good probiotics and take care of your bowel. I mean, like you said, it is the only thing, okay, because nothing will get into your system, and that goes from eating clean foods, drinking clean water, being aware of some of the chemicals and toxins that you're exposing yourself to. And as long as you do that, as long as you keep your gut clean, your gut will take care of your self-healing mechanism. Everything we talked, it's really the gut and the liver. The liver also is severely congested in every single person over the age of 20 or 30 because the liver is your main detoxification organ. I mean, in one day alone, the amount of toxins that you breathe in through the air, the liver it really needs to be cleaned on a regular basis. It only takes 4 or 5 days. You can do a liver cleanse, with the olive oil. There's a bunch of them all over online. We developed one that was using all organic herbs that is, really, really potent. But again, it doesn't matter. It's about cleansing your body, cleansing your liver, and keeping your intestines clean. I know you asked for one of the things, but the second thing is you really need to focus on cleaning your liver and at least do 3 back-to-back liver cleanses once a year.
Now, you mentioned a little while back about the function of the appendix. Now, in conventional medicine, it seems to me that they have the belief that the appendix is really somewhat of an unnecessary organ and that can be removed without any repercussions. So what exactly is happening to the body when the appendix is removed?
It'd be like taking the microcomputer chip out of the computer. It just goes haywire. Now, there is, thank God that we're an energy system, because we do have, even when the appendix is taken out, we still have a phantom appendix. It's just like, someone gets their leg chopped off below the knee and they can still feel their toes because the energy is still there, even though the physical body's not there. It's called phantom pain or phantom feelings. So what happens is, even though the physical appendix is taken out, it does still affect the body forever. But we do have, it's just like when you get your gallbladder taken out too. You have a phantom gallbladder. You still have the energy signature there of the gallbladder. You still have the energy signature there of the appendix. Although, so you will still have, let's say, 10%, 15% maybe of, the energy frequencies that the appendix is picking up, translating it, but it definitely will affect your body in a harmful way. And same goes for the gallbladder. If you don't have your gallbladder, you're going to need to really take care of your liver even more, and you're going to need to do a liver and gallbladder cleanse. I say a liver and gallbladder cleanse because it's the same. Even if you don't have a gallbladder, you should still be doing a liver cleanse at least once every 3 months or so.
Now, what's the most effective antioxidant or supplement that you sell? I know you talk a lot about iodine and its benefits. Would that be one of those supplements that you'd rank up there, or is there something else?
Well, I'm not a big person I don't think people should be on bags of supplements, because when we had our clinic, the first thing we would ask patients to bring in what they're on, and they would come in with just bags upon bags, taking hundreds of supplements a day. Our philosophy was, if your body is clean and you're eating good and you're eating healthy, you really don't need a lot of things. However, I do think that even in organic foods, because of the soil is so contaminated and so suppressed of proper nutrient balance, the worms are dying in the soil because of all the chemicals. Our earth is affected, that you do need to take a good multivitamin and mineral formula on a daily basis. And I take Intramax. It's a product developed by Drucker Labs. I think it's probably the best all-around liquid, organic, carbon-bonded vitamin and mineral supplement out there. There's only a few things that I recommend besides intestinal cleansing and keeping your body clean and doing cleansing 3 or 4 times a year. The next thing that I recommend is iodine, just because you're not going to be able to get the amount of iodine that you need in the current diet, whether it's organic or not. And that's one of the things that we looked for that. What are the things that everybody, even if they had a super clean diet, they only drank water, they keep their body clean, are they still going to be deficient in something? And iodine is one of those things that, yes, you will be deficient. And just because with Brownstein's work, we just don't have enough. And the fact that there is so much, iodine is a halogen. It's in the same group as bromine, fluoride, chlorine, and iodine. So because iodine was taken out of everything, the iodized salt, and it was taken out of the breads and replaced with bromine or brominated things, and we have so much chlorine in the water and swimming pools, and we have so much fluoride everywhere in the water system and fluoride everywhere else, it depletes the thyroid, and all those chemicals get absorbed into the thyroid gland and all the other different cells in the body too. And iodine, even if you had it in small amounts, it still would have a hard time getting into the thyroid. So iodine is used for every single cell in the body. And that's why we're having so many thyroid issues out there, and so many problems with weight gain. And it's just it's one of the most it's one of the most important nutrients that you could ever put in your system. Think of all of the problems with fibrocystic breast disease, any type of cyst in the body. That's your first sign is iodine deficiency. That's why goiters were, that's how they found goiters. If you have any polycystic ovarian disease, cystic ovaries, cysts anywhere in your body, the first thing you want to look at is iodine deficiency. Brain development, it's associated with miscarriage, preterm, cognitive problems, especially if someone is exposed to different types of chemicals, it's going to reduce their concentration of iodine. It is by far, I take it. I think everybody should take it on a regular basis. It is, you don't even have to take it every day. All you would have to do is maybe take a dropper full once a week, once every couple of weeks, just to protect your cells. It's an amazing substance to have in the body. It increases your immune system tremendously. It helps your thyroid. It helps you lose weight. It helps you with your energy. It lifts your brain fog. There's just a list of things that iodine is good for that people can benefit from. So another thing that I would say that we're starting to see a major deficiency in, besides iodine, is B12. And B12 is, people think that, they're vegetarians, that, only vegetarians and vegans are going to have a B12 deficiency. But if you look at all the clinical studies and everything, really most of the B12 deficiencies are from meat eaters. Most people, the reason why they say vegetarian vegans are just because they're the ones going in and getting tested. But if you look overall, at least 50% of the population has clinically depressed B12 levels. And that's only, when they test it, they look at B12 levels under 150. I think anyone under a 300 on testing is B12 deficient. So I would say that I would guess probably 8 out of 10 people are B12 deficient. Why is that? Well, because B12 is not, it's not, people think, oh, well, I get my B12 from meat and I get my B12 from dairy. That's not B12. B12 is manufactured from bacterial organisms in the soil. How you get B12 in meat and dairy is because the grasses in the soil. It's called cobalamin. And if there's no cobalt in the soil and the bacteria can't thrive in the soil, and the soil isn't thriving with the bacteria producing the B12 in the soil, which right now we know that that the bacteria is dead in all the soil. And we know that there's a lot of the cobalt is missing in the soil because of all the aluminum and all the other stuff that's coming down from the acid rains. So if you look at that in the cattle and eating all the GMO foods and everything like that, you're starting to see a major deficiency. It's just that nobody is talking about the true reason why people are deficient in B12, and they're saying it's only vegetarians, but it's not. It's meat eaters even more. 99% of the B12 deficiencies that are being diagnosed are actually in meat eaters. So you're not getting enough B12, and B12 is what's causing all kinds of neurological stuff. It's causing Alzheimer's-like symptoms, dementia, ADD, ADHD, autism, problems with pregnancy, again, a lack of energy, fatigue in the afternoon. So I just finished a big research project on B12, and I would say that, and we just developed a product actually, which is a methylcobalamin and an adenosylcobalamin mix, which is a sublingual form of B12 that people can take. So again, that's not to promote my products. You can go get any type of methylcobalamin sublingual out there, but I would highly recommend looking at getting on a B12 supplement. And that's something that you don't really need a lot of either. You know, you were talking micrograms. You could take 1,000 micrograms of B12, and B12 stores in your body and is stored in your liver, and that's all you would need for a month if you really wanted to just have good B12 levels. So the way the body's made is you really don't need a lot of these things in there. It just needs a tiny bit of a lot of things. You know, that's, again, it's if your body's clean and with just a few supplements, keeping it everything, then that's really my philosophy, and that's the philosophy of all the ancient healers, of the ones that would actually teach people how to heal themselves, is being able to just put the minerals in the body that they need. You know, and that's another thing. We talked about Himalayan crystal salt. You know, our water inside of our body is almost exactly like seawater. So the problem is, or the situation is, that we're consuming table salt, which is a highly processed form of sodium chloride, and it's not the natural salt form that we would normally get. And you always have to evaluate your living environment. Right now, we're living in a world, and everybody would agree, that the air is contaminated, the soil is contaminated, the water is contaminated. So we have to modify our system to utilize what we're missing and take the things that we really need to survive and to thrive.
I eat a lot of nutritional yeast. Do you think nutritional yeast is an adequate source of B12?
Well, that depends. That depends, because another problem with B12 is the fact that you can take a lot of B12 in, and it might not be absorbed properly into your system. Your parietal, and the reason why is your stomach. If your stomach's parietal cells are not functioning properly, which secrete intrinsic factor, the intrinsic factor won't bond to the B12 and take it all the way down into the ileum, the terminal ileum, where it needs to be absorbed. That's why I think that regardless, just to be on the safe side, you should always take B12 in a sublingual or an injectable form. If you're healthy, which I know you are, and you're taking nutritional yeast, then you probably won't have a problem with B12. The problem comes in is if anyone drinks alcohol, if anyone drinks coffee on a regular basis, if anyone has altered hydrochloric acid levels in their stomach, which practically 99 out of 100 people do, then you're going to be, or gluten. Anybody eats gluten, which means wheat, barley, or rye. And you know how, and also GMO foods, because GMO foods, the Bt toxin will alter the parietal cell function in the stomach. It'll actually burn holes into your stomach. Any of those variables, you will most likely need to take B12 either sublingually or intramuscularly, because you're not going to be producing the intrinsic factor that's needed to bond to the B12 to get it absorbed in the terminal ileum.
Now I want to go back to iodine for a minute. Now the conventional wisdom, and this is something that I picked up from the Mayo Clinic website, actually. They believe, as conventional medicine does, that iodine supplements aren't necessary if you live in the United States or in most developed countries. Some alternative medicine practitioners recommend iodine tablets or kelp supplements, which are high in iodine, for people with hypothyroidism. I know that a lot of people who have hypothyroidism have that belief that iodine can be a bad idea, and that they're getting adequate amounts in iodized salt, for example. What's your belief on iodine as for hypothyroidism in particular?
My belief is not only a belief, but if you look at Brownstein's work, and you can tell he's got plenty of YouTube videos out there on hypothyroidism and iodine, hyperthyroidism on iodine, as well as Hashimoto's on iodine. And with my experience, iodine has been, again, let me just put this out as a disclaimer. Every single patient should be identified independently. It's not like, okay, I can give iodine to 1 million hypothyroid patients and all of them are going to be cured. There's other factors that could be contributing to that. But and again, one of the things that the World Health Organization, the National Institute of Health, the pharmaceutical companies, you got to remember, all those people are paid with pharmaceutical money. they're not going to say anything that's going to reduce the income of pharmaceutical companies. So that being said, all the doctors are being taught to prescribe. They're not taught to address the root cause of the issue. The root cause of the issue with hypothyroidism is, okay, that person's probably drinking a bunch of tap water. They have so much chlorine and fluoride in their thyroid that even if they are taking iodine, the iodine can't get into their thyroid. My personal opinion is all thyroid issues, or the majority of them, stem from an iodine deficiency. And I think most people that have worked with iodine will agree with me on that. But that's not, so whether it's, is iodine alone? And I've had plenty of people that have completely worked with their thyroid conditions with iodine and a few other things, and they've normalized their thyroid over a period of time. It takes, the big thing people need to know, though, is anybody with a thyroid condition, whether it's hyperthyroid, hypothyroid, Hashimoto's, whatever, is it takes time. Don't expect changes to happen before 6 months. And a lot of people think that they go ahead and start taking iodine, all of a sudden their hypothyroid is going to be fixed in 2 days. It takes a long time for the iodine to start grabbing all that built up chlorine and fluoride and bromine that's been built up inside the thyroid gland for a long period of time, because iodine will also help bond to that and clean it out. It can take 6 months to clean that out of your thyroid. And once you have it cleaned out, then then the iodine can actually get in and start working to help normalize thyroid conditions. A lot of doctors will say, if you have hyperthyroidism, the last thing you want to do is give iodine. If you have Hashimoto's, the last thing you want to do is give iodine. Well, the doctors out there that have been working with thyroid conditions that have been using iodine have seen just the opposite. Yes, you will for a period of time, over the next few months, up to 6 months, have spikes, even higher spikes, and maybe higher incidence of hyperthyroidism because you're pulling things out. You might have your Hashimoto's, which is just, inconsistent findings of the thyroid hormones going up and down like a roller coaster ride. You might have increased roller coaster rides during your Hashimoto's. Hypothyroidism, you might see, all your thyroid hormones going up and down. Basically, you're going to have, in my experience, and I'm not nearly as experienced as Dr. Brownstein. He is the iodine thyroid doctor to go to if you have, any issues, and to read and to watch all of his videos. He's answered all those questions. I haven't, the only difference between ours is he uses a different type of iodine. I have a different belief system. I think that the detoxified nascent iodine works extremely better. And you can read all the reviews online too, that people who have had situations, thyroid situations, that have used both, and you'll see that, Edgar Casey initially produced the energetic or the nascent iodine form and an alcohol base. I think if he was still alive today and, vegetable glycerin was developed and in the market now, he would probably say use vegetable glycerin, because back then the only thing to use was alcohol. Now we know through scientific research that alcohol is an endocrine disrupting chemical, and that's only happened within the last 5 years. So right now, you should see people that, whether it's an herbal tincture or anything, moving away from alcohol and getting into or vegetable glycerin as a carrier, as an extraction medium. It works incredible. So that would be my solution. Like I said, everybody has to be evaluated separately, but there's always a solution for every situation, whether it's thyroid or whether it's any type of condition that they're dealing with. But iodine not only is it beneficial for thyroid, iodine is utilized for every single cell in the body. All these people that have fertility issues, sterility issues, glandular tissue issues, endocrine disorders, Neurological disorders, the list, I mean, you can pull up a list of probably 100 different things for iodine deficiency. And like I said, it's used for every cell, and it's something that I believe that I take on a regular basis. I give it to my kids. I notice they're, sharper in school. They definitely don't have problems with hyperactivity like all the other kids, which live on high fructose corn syrup all day long at school. So it's something that's definitely one of my top recommended products that I think everybody should be on.
Is there an age that's too young to be taking iodine?
Not at all. I mean, iodine should actually be taken during pregnancy. Most pregnant women are defective or deficient in iodine. And that's something I highly recommend pregnant women taking, because a lot of the birth defects, a lot of the mental, the retardation, mental retardation is directly linked to iodine deficiency. So yes, and even we have people that take it while they breastfeed, so it gets in the breast milk. There is no age that you shouldn't have iodine, even when you're in your fetal. Iodine deficiency and all the studies show that it impairs fetal brain development. So it's very important for pregnant and nursing women, and even small children. You can put a drop in their I don't recommend any woman using a formula. I recommend only breastfeeding, but if the woman pumps and uses their breast milk and stores it up, they can always put a drop of iodine in their breast milk in the bottle before they feed their children once or twice a week or whatever.
I am quite familiar with Dr. Brownstein's work as well, and I believe he says that especially girls who are going through puberty need to take more iodine because the developing breast tissue requires iodine, and I'm assuming that if that's the case, then it would instead absorb bromine or fluoride or something else. Does that make sense?
Yes, that's correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I really, children are more susceptible. They're in a way, their cells are stronger because they're so fresh and so new. But in a way, they also need the proper nutrients to grow properly, to develop their brain properly, to develop their bones, to develop all of the organ systems, as well as the skin, everything in their system. So I think that it's really important that children take a good multivitamin and mineral formula, continue to take iodine. I might give my kids iodine. I have an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old. Both of them are boys. Then I delivered both of them myself in my bedroom, a completely natural birth, never had any toxins, never had any meat products, lived on an organic diet. And they've been on iodine and supplements and everything since birth, and they're extremely healthy. So I think that, right now you need to supplement from even before pregnancy. When we had our fertility program, which was another thing that FDA made us eliminate, was we would start, have people that would come to us that were having fertility problems. We would put them on a 3-month program to clean them out, the husband and the wife. Most of the problems with fertility are the males, actually, because of all the estrogens and xenoestrogen, all the sterility stuff that's in society to make the males sterile now. But we would start and clean them both out, the male and the female, for 3 months before they even tried to get pregnant. See, that's what you need to do. You really need to start as far back as you can, because then we had no problems with people getting pregnant. We would put them on all that stuff. Then within a month, couple weeks, and within 3 months, they would be pregnant. And then, educating them what to eat throughout pregnancy and getting them what they need on the proper prenatals and everything throughout pregnancy, then you ensure that your baby is going to be, really nutritionally benefited.
So what do you think about some of the centenarian cultures around the world, like the Hunsins or the Okinawan elders and so on? Obviously, in those cultures, they don't take iodine, and they don't. I assume they don't do colon cleanses. What do you attribute their excellent health? Is it just that they are not? Well, actually, the Okinawans live within a ordinary society with the same toxins in the air and environment. Why do you think that they don't necessarily have to do these sorts of things, and they manage to avoid having any serious degenerative diseases well into their 90s and even over 100 in some cases?
Because of this soil environment, they focus on their soil, and they focus on the earth, and they know that if they have the proper bacterial, probiotics and soil-based microorganisms, it all comes down to the microculture of things. It really all comes down to the things that you can't see. Because if you look at all the probiotics in the soil, they pretty much produce all of the minerals and the nutrients that we all living substances need. Once you start killing off all the worms, there's an ecosystem that goes on in the soil that is that really is the living, controls all living substances on the planet. They take care of their ecosystem. They look at their water. They make sure their water is clean. They have they burn wood. They make carbon filters. They do all that kind of stuff to where they can make sure that their ecosystem starts in the ground. If it starts in the ground, then they're going to get all their B supplements. They're going to get all their iodine. They're going to get everything that they need. That's why the Hunza water is high in all kinds of minerals and everything else, because it runs down and it goes over, all kinds of volcanic stuff, and it's got they've preserved the earth as best as they can, and not allowed, even though to a certain degree, it is contaminated, and I think that even though those cultures are taking care of the earth as much as they are, if you compare those cultures living right now compared to those cultures in the same area, like the Hunzas and stuff that lived 50, 60, 70 years ago, I still think that they're not doing as good right now as they did back then, just because of everything that's in the air and all that. So, but you can do it. I mean, and you have some people right now that are actually growing with aquaponics and it's like I said, we talk about all the bad stuff, but there is a solution. There are ways. Unfortunately, we might be in a society that's growing all of our food in big greenhouses and using aquaculture and some of these other things right now that people are doing to make sure that we actually have the vitamins and all the stuff in the foods in high levels. Because the soil around the world is just not being conducive to produce those. That's another reason why I've been working on that probiotic formula, because I want to be able to have, if you have all those probiotics in your body, they also produce a lot of vitamins and minerals and nutrients for you. And those nutrients get absorbed right into your bloodstream. So it goes back to the gut again too. So that's really the soil. It all starts from the soil. And when people wash their veggies, in a perfect scenario, when they grow their food over there, they pick it and eat it right away, which means that it's ripe, number one. Here in all the grocery stores, even the organic grocery stores, all of the stuff has been picked before it was allowed to ripen, which means it's on an energy level, a consciousness level, a nutrient level, it's deficient. We even know it's certified organic. In a perfect scenario, you grow your own food, and they put the seeds in their mouth, and the seeds will read after 9 minutes, coated in your own saliva, all the nutrients you need in your body that you're deficient of. There's a lot of other techniques that are used over there, and so that plant will grow those nutrients in higher amounts for you. In Russia, they've been doing that for years in certain colonies that live up in the Siberian area that are kind of like the Hunzas and everything, where they grow, the plants grow according to what your body needs. Also, they use their own urine for fertilizer, and the plants will recognize the deficiencies in your urine when you put it on there, and the soil will adapt to that, and the microorganisms in the soil will start producing more of those individual minerals and nutrients that you need, or your community needs. So the plants will grow and produce what, if you have a community like that and you use your, the urine and you use your saliva for the seeds and you have, all that stuff going on, the plants know who you are, and you talk to the plants and you have that relationship with the plants and you're picking all the stuff fresh and you're not washing all the stuff off of it, which we do here with chlorine and everything else, then you'll be able to get those nutrients that you need.
Now, do you think I want to speak a little about genetics for a moment. Do you think that from any research you've seen or just your own opinion on it, that our genes are altered by the DNA of the foods that we eat? So, for example, if we're to eat the diet of the Hunses, which is primarily vegetarian with a little bit of meat and dairy, will that alter the genetic makeup, not only physically, but mentally, spiritually, emotionally of the person, as opposed to eating, let's say, an American standard diet of hamburgers, fries, and various processed foods?
Your genes change according to the environment, the current environment in which you live. It's not like you can say, okay, I live in Houston and I'm going to eat the Hunza diet. The Hunza's genes adapt to their environment. My genes adapt to the environment that I put myself in Houston. If you live up in Alaska and you're eating fish or whatever, your genes are going to adapt to the environment that you put it in. One thing Bruce Lipton proved that genes don't cause disease. It's the environment, with the cell membrane, the exposure to the cell membrane that causes the problems. And my philosophy is right along the lines with his. Your genetic code will adapt to the environment that it's exposed to. If you create a farm, if I have a farm here in Houston, and I have I'm growing my own vegetables, I'm using my urine as a fertilizer, I'm doing all that over a period of time, and I have a clean environment, then my genes will adapt to that clean environment. If I have a toxic environment, my genes will adapt to a toxic environment and probably cause cancer. So genes will be your genetic change, and each time your cells replicate, you can have a genetic change, and that's why your skin replicates so fast, and your intestines are the same cells of your skin, epithelial cells. That's why a lot of times if you have problems with your skin, you really have problems with your intestines. So, you can create fast genetic change in your skin and your intestines, or some things take 6 years, like your bones, to change. So, it's all a direct reflect of what's coming into your system and your environment that you're exposing yourself to.
Now, you're going to be at our expo. I don't want to wrap up with one topic, and so you'll be speaking 2 days at our expo. The first day, you'll be speaking about the secrets of health, which we're going to be, I assume you're going to cover a lot of these topics and go a little bit more in depth. But there's another subject that you sort of touched on at the very beginning of our conversation, and it's I assume this is a topic that you've never really lectured on stage, and it's titled Children of the New Earth, a Spiritual Approach to Raising Conscious Children. Now, this is something very close to my own heart because we're in the process of launching our own year-round alternative school here, and at the moment we have an evening program for children with special gifts who want to learn how to develop them. So could you talk a little about what you plan to discuss during that lecture?
Yes, what I wanted to talk about was kind of the experience that I went through as a child, and why and how parents and teachers for that matter, really how they can recognize the spiritual abilities of children. A lot of times the symptoms or the signs of spirituality are misdiagnosed, like what we were talking about earlier, like autism or ADD, ADHD, stuff like that. But how you can support the spiritual consciousness and the growth of children, what things are going to be preventing that child from adapting to different types of society issues, whether your child is an indigo child, a rainbow child, or a star child, whether, recognizing their abilities, disciplinary things. I mean, a lot of times people don't know how to communicate properly with their child. The child could be a spiritual children, have a hard time communicating what they want to communicate with their parents. And a lot of times they throw fits to get that attention, or they'll get angry, or, sometimes severe anger is a sign. They just can't handle being in this body on this level because they've come from such a highly vibrational, they're a highly vibrational being coming into a very low vibrational system and world. And it's very hard for them because they're on such a higher level to communicate. And usually their parents aren't on that high of a level. So it's close to my heart to try to go over some of these things that you can notice and some different ways of working with these children to encourage them to grow spiritually, mentally, and physically. And some of the techniques that I've used and counseled people with that seem to be very effective. And then also some of the challenges that these children are faced with in schools, like Common Core, the challenges that they're going to be faced with other children, acceptance issues, some of the things that they're going to be taught. Because a lot of the things, the teaching methods are wrong. And, spiritual children need to be taught in different ways. Unfortunately, we don't have enough schools like yours. And, Montessori does a fairly decent job with it's basically one of the only options out there for up at least until I recommend that up until about homeschooling. If you have a spiritual parents would be great, or someone or a school like yours. But the fact that the Montessori allows them to be able to go on their own and explore and do their own thing up until about first or second grade is what we've seen works well, and then getting them into a little bit more structure and finding a school that focuses on different aspects.
So do you consider yourself one of these children when you were younger?
I mean, I had all the symptoms. Well, I shouldn't say symptoms. I had all the blessings. That's what I should say. If you focus, and I didn't know. Remember, I was telling you about I was taking all the psychiatrists and everything, and then finally I met one that diagnosed me as an indigo child. I was like, "What is that?" She's like, "What do you?" She went down this long list of symptoms, and it was like, "Do you have this? Do 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 you have this?" I was like, yes. She goes, "Well, did anyone ever tell you were an indigo child?" And I was like, "A what?" She said, "An indigo child." This was actually, believe it or not, right around the time I was going through that whole medical school cancer thing. I was trying to learn about who I was. And she was at this facility that I went to. I think we were going to give a talk on cancer or something. And she was a natural spiritual psychiatrist that was doing work with helping people grow spiritually and stuff like that. And she was like, I noticed when you were up there, I noticed your energy. You have this light around you. She's like, "I bet you always had problems in life doing this and doing that and doing that." And I was like, "Yeah, I did actually. I used to go see a bunch of psychiatrists about it." And she's like, "Really?" And then she starts going over all the symptoms with me, and I was like, yeah. Wow, I never knew anybody. Yeah, no one's ever asked me that before. Yeah, you're right. I was like, wow, that's incredible. And she's like, "Yeah, well, you're an indigo child." I was like, then I said, "What? What's that?" And so I met with her. We just went over. I said, "Oh my gosh," that's when I started learning about it. I was like, "Oh man, if I'm that way." And she's like, "Yeah, all these indigo children started being born in right around 1965. all the way up through, I think, some into the late 80s. And then they started, the next level of consciousness started coming in, like the rainbow children and the star children and all these. I was like, oh my gosh, so there's more. And so, yeah, and so that's when I really started looking into it, and then started realizing that I was not alone out there, that there's so many people. I'm sure you and everybody else out there too have had are either indigo or star or rainbow or some sort of highly conscious being that came in, and we probably wouldn't even be talking right now. But it's amazing how many people just are out there that just need help and that are just unaware of it, and especially children. You know, the American Autism Association, I give them a lot of credibility for going out on a limb and actually promoting some of wanting to work with me and posting our autism protocol, which talks about highly spiritual children coming in and the importance and how the vaccines, when they get the vaccines, one of the ways that the control mechanisms of the negative side of things try to reduce that spiritual consciousness is through vaccines, also like fluoride and other things. But that the Autism Association actually recommends our autism program, which talks about all that and talks about how to some of the methods you can use to help children and the misdiagnoses of some children, especially when you talk to somebody, a parent that says, yeah, my child has autism, but never had a vaccine, is very healthy, eats organic foods. You know, we did natural childbirth, all that. And we just say, yeah, well, your child is a star or a rainbow child, and that'll go away. He'll adapt by the time, or he or she will adapt by the time they're 12. And sure enough, they know. Then they start reading everything about rainbow children, and they start reading everything about star children. And there's a lot of good information out there. I don't know. There's people have written books about it now. And then they just tell, they support it. Look, this is who you are, and this is the best way for you to learn, and this is the best way for you to adapt to society. And that way the child understands and who they are, and they don't have to deal. It's very difficult for children to deal with negativity and stress. You don't have them watch the news. You don't put them around negative environments. You really have to give them that spiritual environment here on Earth. So a lot of plants around in their room, a lot of connection to nature, taking them to parks, using crystals and all of the toys for my kids when I was growing up were crystals. I had a whole box full of crystals and rocks and fossils and everything, and that's how they would just play with those and feel the energy of them, as they mature.
Yeah, it sounds like you were not your ordinary average child. So where do you think, with all that we talked about today, and including the children that are coming on the planet now, where do you think we're going as a country and as a world in terms of the bigger picture, which includes health, the educational system, government, consciousness, and so on? I mean, do you think we've turned the corner toward a more hopeful, optimistic future, or do you think there's still a chance we're headed into a darker place?
No doubt we're heading in the right direction. I mean, we are coming into a more fully conscious, whether we reach full consciousness and then automatically ascend to another dimension, or whether we stay here and we have full consciousness here. We're definitely making progress. There's no doubt about it. There's always going to be there's a lot of negative, but we have to go through it for karmic purposes. There might be some trying times. There probably will be some trying times. We might be faced with a financial collapse. We might be faced with some sort of biological warfare. We might be faced with negativity. But the thing is, we should just, as long as you're prepared, you should not have any fear about that. The most important thing I would say that is through meditation, getting a higher connection with God. There's no way that you can ever fail on a personal level. And as you do that, and as you raise your own consciousness, so does the consciousness of the planet. We are definitely becoming a more conscious planet. We're kind of like right at that tipping point right now, but with people waking up and more children waking up every single day, and with all of us getting the information out there, you and us and everybody, about how to really become one and reactivate their body's own self-healing mechanism, I think we're making exponential progress. I mean, exponential progress. I'm definitely happy. Just from 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I mean, look at all the people out there right now fighting against Monsanto. Look at what we've done. Look at all the crops that we've stopped, from poisoning the earth. Look at all of the people right now that are turning to some sort of natural form of medicine. Look at all the people that have started their own gardens, that are growing their own food, that are moving outside into the country, that are fighting against water fluoridation, that are, we're actually standing up and realizing what's going on. I mean, we have to make an effort too. We can't expect, the people that the government organizations and everybody that want all the bad things to happen to us are just going to automatically shift. We have to put forth our effort as well.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for spending so much time with me today. Can you tell our listeners where they can find out more about you, your work, your books, and where to buy your products and so on?
Sure. I mean, they can go to globalhealingcenter.com. That's www.globalhealingcenter.com. And we have a blog on there. We have a Facebook page, constantly putting out new information. All of it's free. We do have some products on there. I have my book, The Green Body Cleanse, on there, which is a great starter book for everybody. It's not super scientific. It's just well written, that goes over everything that you need to do to reactivate your body's self-healing mechanism. And we also have a YouTube channel. You can type in Global Healing Center in YouTube. And we have tons of videos that teach you about your health, teach you about toxins, how to live a better life, how to clean up your home. So you can pretty much get and find everything that you need regarding health through globalhealingcenter.com.
Great. Thank you very much. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing you in person in April.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.